Welcome to the Pocket. My name is Scooter, and here for you guys today, I have my Week 16 preview for the Giants matchup at Atlanta against the Falcons. Now, before we get into it, please don't forget to leave a like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Now, the Giants are 2-12, and the Atlanta Falcons are 7-7. And for those of you who are unaware, the Falcons decided after last week's win to bench Kirk Cousins. Over the last 5 weeks, the Falcons were 0-4 until they barely scraped out a win against the Las Vegas Raiders against one of their former players, Desmond Ridder, who also did not play very well. They won like 15-9 or something, and after just that many weeks of Kirk looking like a statue in the pocket, not being able to move, it just wasn't worth it to start him anymore, and you figured, hey, this is why we got Penix anyway, right? I mean, it is still very confusing. I kind of hold the belief that there was something about Cousins' injury that they were not fully aware of. And I'm not saying from like a legal sense, but they just underestimated his ability, rather the adversity he was going to face to fully recover from that injury. And I think they sort of panicked and then decided to draft Penix. But hey, now you look like a genius, right? Because if Penix ends up panning out, then maybe not a genius, but you kind of redeemed yourself. So that's all the news about Michael Penix starting in this game. He's going to be taking on the Giants' Drew Lock, who is, now that Daniel Jones is gone, the best quarterback on the roster. So the status is for the playoffs for both of these teams. Obviously, the Giants are eliminated, but for the Falcons, they're in second place in the NFC South right now. And that means that unless if they win the division, that they're going to have to battle it out for this NFC 7 seed. The Commanders currently hold it at 9-5, and the Seahawks are right behind them at 8-6. So if the Commanders and Seahawks go just above 500, or if either of those teams win out, then the Falcons are not going to be able to make the playoffs. So they're very desperate. That's why they made this change at quarterback. I honestly think that this is going to end up helping them. I mean, Penix doesn't have nearly the experience Cousins has, obviously, and he doesn't have the same knowledge of the game. But just what he can do in every single play from an athletic standpoint, even if he was just an average athlete, it would be an upgrade from Kirk Cousins. But Penix is actually pretty athletic, and he can move around. I believe he ran like a 4.5. Even though he's had a lot of lower body injuries, obviously he's still got some speed, right? And then he's got a bit of a stronger arm. You know, he is a pocket passer at heart. So it's not like they're going to be changing their scheme to get him in there. And hopefully at this point in the season, after all these weeks of practice, I think he's going to look really, really good out there, especially sitting behind a guy like Kirk. So with the Falcons trying to make a late season push for the playoffs, even though I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this before, a rookie being trusted with the last 3 games of the season to make the playoffs, I don't really blame them for making that decision against the Giants. So now that we know the team status for, the context of, are they in the playoffs? Are they really pushing as hard as they possibly can? Or are they like the Giants and they've already been eliminated? So now that we know that, let's look at the team stats. It's late in the year, so the sample size is very nice. And even though there's obviously different groups of guys going out there due to injuries and stuff throughout the season, this will give us an overall look at what the teams are capable of. So starting off with the offense, looking at the Falcons, they've had a pretty below average passing offense. They are in like the middle, one of the middle rows of the chart. But the thing is when you look at some of the top teams with 30 plus touchdowns, passing touchdowns, and then you go all the way to the bottom with the Giants. Oh my God. The Giants have 9 passing touchdowns and 10 interceptions. We don't even have double-digit passing touchdowns. There's not another team in the NFL with less than 14 passing touchdowns. So that's just embarrassing. Obviously, the Giants' passing game is awful. I mean, we haven't even combined for 3,000 passing yards yet. Like, are we going to before the end of the year? I mean, most likely, but I wouldn't be too surprised if we didn't. And then the Falcons, as I said, theirs is sort of average. They have 18 passing touchdowns, but 16 interceptions. So over the past 4 weeks, 5 weeks, like I said, Kirk has not been playing well. So that's where a lot of those interceptions are coming from. They do have pretty good passing yards, 3,500. They've been moving the ball. And then their yards per attempt, obviously the Giants are at the bottom at 5.7, but the Falcons they're near the top of the league. I would say they're top 15 or so at 7.7 yards per attempt. So they can push the ball down the field. And that was with Kirk. I think with Penix, they're going to be much more capable of doing that. And that should be something to keep an eye on, because this Giants, pass rush has fallen off over the past couple of weeks, and just kind of the whole defense in general. So maybe Penix is going to, unleash a passing game. But what I would expect them to do is to run the ball on us, because that's been the Giants' weakness all year. They have a good offensive line. They have Bijan Robinson, and the result of that is 4.4 yards per carry and 1,740 rushing yards. Now, they don't have the most rushing touchdowns. They only have 10. But like I said, 1,700 rushing yards is a pretty decent amount. It's above average, but we know they're capable of more than that. I would say they were probably ready for the run game, because they figured as long as they perform their assignments on defense, then they can handle Kirk's passing game. So that's the offense. Clearly, they have an advantage. I mean, you look at the Giants' running game, and even though we don't have the rushing yards, our yards per carry isn't too bad. We're also at 4.4, but we're just not in the game script to run the ball quite as much as they do. So that's actually sort of surprising to me that we have the same yards per carry. But like I said, I think they're going to get a little boost to the whole offense with Penix in there. So now let's transition to the defense. And the Falcons' defense certainly is their weakness. They have allowed tied for the most passing touchdowns in the league at 27. Now, they have gotten 9 interceptions, but the three other teams they're tied with, the Texans had 19 interceptions. So that's, at least, even though you're letting up a lot of passing touchdowns, you're getting a lot of interceptions. So that's nice. But then the Panthers and Jaguars, 7 interceptions, 5 interceptions. So I would say they're a bottom 3 pass defense. And that also doesn't even take into account the fact that they're bottom in the NFL still in sacks at 23. Oh my God, the Giants had like 26 by like week 4. So just to think how bad this passing defense is, kind of gives the Giants a little bit of life and hope that they can at least move the ball on offense, even if we don't win. I don't want to see a game where we don't score like 20 points in a game like this where we should. And then looking at as I said, the Giants' passing defense, our pass rush has fallen off over the past couple weeks. We used to lead the NFL in sacks a couple weeks ago. I don't know when it finally switched over, but now we have 41, so we're still technically top 10. But Dexter Lawrence isn't there anymore. Burns is beat up. Kayvon's coming off of an injury that he returned from a few weeks ago, so he's not really 100% either. And so that's the Giants' passing defense. It hasn't really been what it was early in the year, but as I described, we've really sort of laid down this year. I mean, we only have 2 interceptions, and that's a big part of it. We're not turning the ball over, and what do you know? We have allowed 7.7 yards per attempt, just like their passing game. Now, moving on to the run defense. As I stated, the Giants have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, 4.9 yards per carry. And when it comes to rushing yards, we've allowed the second most in the NFL. Rushing touchdowns, we are tied for somewhere in the middle of the pack, I would say, at 14. So I guess that could be worse, but there you have it. Giants have a terrible run defense. How's the Falcons? Well, theirs is sort of average. Actually, it's pretty good when it comes to rushing touchdowns. They've only allowed 7, which is tied for the least in the NFL. But as we stated, their passing defense is very bad, and that's how teams decide to score on them. And then when it comes to yards per carry, they've allowed 4.3 yards per carry. So definitely much lower than the Giants, and towards the bottom of the league. The lowest is 3.5 for the Ravens, and then a couple 3.9s, and then all the rest is 4, and it creeps up from there. And then when it comes to the rushing yards, they have allowed 1,600. So that is also pretty low. So that's the team stats. So we have an idea now that the Falcons have a decent running game. They have a passing game that can be explosive. On defense, their pass defense is quite poor. And then their run defense is pretty good. For the Giants, obviously, we know we have probably the worst passing game in the NFL. We have a okay run game. Our defense isn't really thriving at anything right now. One more thing before we get into the Vegas projection. I'm just going to give you a quick update on the injury report for this game. I did give you one in my score predictions video, but I'll just give you it again just to see if anything changed for the Falcons. Questionable is Cordell Hodge, wide receiver with the ribs, former Giant, edge rusher Lorenzo Carter is questionable with a groin, and then out for them is going to be Casey Washington, wide receiver. So those are mostly all depth guys right there. For the Giants, it's a lot worse. Questionable for them. Linebacker Deontay Johnson, lineman Austin Schlottman. I believe he's a guard. Cornerback Deontay Banks, questionable with the ribs. Burns, questionable with the ankle and neck. Tracy with an ankle is questionable. Doubtful for the Giants is Greg Stroman, a guy that we've been working in when Banks has struggled throughout the year, and obviously he was playing last week. He's doubtful, probably not going to play. And then out, linebacker Patrick Johnson with the knee. Out, linebacker Bobby Okereke with the back. And then out is offensive guard Aaron Stinney with a concussion. So we're going to be missing a ton of linebackers in this game. I presume that would imply that guys like Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and maybe Ray McLeod, the slot receiver, should feast on the inside in this game. Because if your number one linebacker is Micah McFadden, and then I would assume you would probably have to resort to Isaiah Simmons getting in there and sort of playing a nickel or dime role. And using those guys to cover these elite weapons is not going to fare well for this Giants defense. Our run defense has been the weakness, and they can already do that at a decent rate. But this passing game is going to be what kills us, I think, in the end of the day. And the Vegas projection sort of reflects that. Despite starting Penix, a rookie quarterback this late in the year, the Falcons are still 8.5-point favorites, and there's a 42-point over-under. Now, I did check these on Thursday, so I don't know if they've changed at all, but I wouldn't imagine they changed too much. And my prediction for this game is going to be that the Falcons win 27-18. So that would be Falcons minus 8.5, and that would be over 42. As I explained, this Falcons offense is very balanced in the end of the day. The passing game and running game have been underwhelming to what our expectations were this year. But like I said, I haven't been a Kirk Cousins hater or anything, and I'm not like some Michael Penix truther. But I do think that they're going to get an upgrade, right? They're going to be able to be more creative. They're not going to be as limited in their play calls. And I think they're starting him for a reason, right? They can see it. We all see it. Kirk is regressing. You have a rookie quarterback. You need to make the playoffs. Go put him out there. And hopefully he gives you the best chance to win. And they're smart for doing this against the Giants. I mean, the Giants don't even want to win. So you're going to be giving a lot of confidence to this rookie quarterback if he can not only win, but maybe score 30 points, right? And then it'll give him confidence going into the next 2 weeks where he's got to win out. So I just think like I said, their passing offense is going to work. Their rushing offense is going to work. I think we're going to be able to do something on offense, whether it's in garbage time or we actually do put together a decent game. But I don't think we're going to eclipse more than 20 points. I wouldn't imagine it. If we did, I wouldn't be too shocked, but I still wouldn't think that we're going to win. So let's take a step back. We've talked about the game twice now. We've talked about guys like Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, and John Mara, the state of the organization. Are we going to fire Daboll? Are we going to fire Joe Shane? Are we going to fire both of them? I've explained how I don't really think too many of these games are going to impact the decision at this point in the season. I think John Mara, whatever he's going to do, already has his mind made up. And I've sort of got this funny feeling that they're going to end up staying because I think John Mara wants to see them draft their own quarterback and that this is the year. But I also wouldn't be shocked if we just completely blew it up. I mean, this is one of the worst seasons. This is the worst season I can ever remember. I can't remember being so disengaged from the game that I don't even tempt myself with some sort of hope unless if it's objectively there. Like this Falcons defense isn't really that great. Okay, maybe Drew Lock can have some sort of legacy game. But am I going to bet on that? Definitely not. I don't support losing, but I just think it's going to happen, right? And with 2 weeks left after this game and versus the Colts and then the Eagles are definitely going to beat us. And that would mean that the last game of the year that we have to sort of go through this process where, we hope we win, but if we lose, we're not too upset. That's going to be the last week of that. And that will sure be a relief for us Giants fans. And now, even if we do lose out, it's still going to depend on one thing, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. If you look at the Tankathon, there are 5 teams that are 3-11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually. And then there are 2 teams that are 2-12. So as long as the Giants lose out, we're getting number 1 or 2, right? But the Raiders currently hold the number 1 pick at 2-12 because their strength of schedule was easier than ours. And having the same record, that means they haven't performed as well. So fortunately for us, the Raiders are going to be playing the Jaguars this week. The Jaguars are 3-11, and they are also sort of in that tank mode. So whether or not the Jaguars win, then that's one more team that's out of our hair when it comes to the draft order. And then if the Raiders win, then like I said, if we lose out, then the Giants actually get the number 1 overall pick. And of course, you can draft a quarterback, but that's a franchise-changing moment because you can trade that pick away. You can use it to draft a quarterback. There's so many things you can do with it. And I think if we got the number 1 overall pick, that might sort of increase the chances that Shane and Dable stay because I think Mara is going to say, okay, I've never had this before. But, we'll see when it comes to all that. Like I said, I just wanted to point out it depends on the Raiders-Jaguars game. And that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I know this isn't the most exciting point in the season, but I do have NFL content coming out for you guys. I just posted my score predictions video last night. I also had some shorts that went up for that. And every Tuesday, I get out my NFL updated power rankings video. Now, what's going to happen when we get to the playoffs? I'm still thinking about what the schedule is going to be. I sort of have an opportunity to restructure how many videos I post every week, how long they are. So I'm excited for that. If you guys have any ideas, please leave them in the comments and drop a like on this video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you aren't already. So I'll thank you guys one more time once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.